Hello everyone in the VC, it's Matt again, fourth video of this weekend. So I'm been industrious last night and this morning. And before I forget, I want to just Merry Christmas to everybody, and I hope you're having a great holiday season and a great Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to everyone. Uh, so yes, I made two videos last night and made one early this morning. I thought I would make another one. This is just going to be some recent Beatle-related pickups that I've picked up. And so we will start. This is Ringo Starr, as you well know. I'm working on filling in gaps in my Beatle and solo Beatle LP collections. Some of these are things that I had before and sold long ago, and some are things that I never got around to getting to begin with. So yes, Ringo. You all know this album doesn't need much introduction, but picked this up recently, a couple of weeks ago, probably. Got it for $4. It's some ringware. The that's split open, so but it does come with the book, and it also the record is in pretty good shape. I need to probably give it a good cleaning, but it's in the vinyl's in pretty good shape, and I'm glad to have that back. I have not had that album in probably close to 20 years, so I'm looking forward to getting reacquainted with it. I don't know. It's been so long since I've had it that I don't remember most of it. The hits, of course, I'm the Greatest, Photograph, You're 16, and Oh My My. But the other songs on here, it's been a while, so I'm looking forward to hearing those again after a long time. And that brings my Ringo collection up to 3, so I'm getting there. I've got Sentimental Journey, this one, and Rotogravure. I never could say that right. So good to have some Ringo back in the collection. The next thing I picked up is something that I never got around to picking up in the first place, never had in any other form. So I got this a couple of weeks ago. This will be George Harrison's final album, Brainwashed. There's the front cover. There's the gatefold, some shrubbery. I'm guessing that's probably the grounds of Friar Park. And the back is got the shadows of the car dummy people, I guess, across the back, and then the song titles. Dark Horse Records, which I was kind of surprised. I didn't know that was still a going concern, so that's good to see that that's still around. And one thing I will say, and this is the beautiful cover and artwork, but really flimsy, the record sleeve. And I've noticed that on quite a few new releases on records. This one, when did this come out? Back in 201 or 202, probably. So it's not that new, but I mean, it's just, I like the thicker cardstock sleeves. This is a great package, kind of marred by having such a flimsy sleeve. So I really got to be careful with that. Of course, I've got a plastic sleeve to put it in and everything. But and I probably need to get a copy of this on CD because I don't want to be playing the record too much because it's long out of print. Um, but there's the inner sleeve, and the cardboard on this is actually thicker than the outer sleeves. Kind of weird. Car test dummy guys again, or girls, or I'm not sure what gender they are. There is the record label, kind of a cool label, the Dark Horse on a purple and light blue. And on the flip side is that guy. That's uh, Buddha or Krishna, or probably Krishna. I don't know. And I didn't get the CD. I've never had the CD, like I said, so I don't know if this came with it or not. But there's a book inside the album that comes with the album. More of the car test dummies and the song lyrics. Um, what is much cooler than that, I think, is there's a great picture of George there toward the end of his life. That's probably in India or Hawaii, I'm imagining. That doesn't look like England to me. And toward the back of the book is yet another really good picture of George somewhere, and I will find it and show it to you, maybe. Where did he go? Um, but it, yeah, here we go. And that definitely doesn't look like England to me either. I'm assuming Hawaii or India. So got that. Like I said, it's a vinyl copy, which was a limited edition because they're not in print anymore. So that was a little pricey. I paid about $40 for that, which is a lot of money. But actually, I'm surprised to learn recently that a lot of these solo Beatle albums from the last 10, 20 years are going for $100, $200 because I guess that was the CD age when those things came out. So they just made the vinyl in like a limited edition, and so they're really hard to find. And so if I want to collect all of those, it's going to cost a lot of money. But anyway, I'm glad to have that. And even better is that I had only heard one or two songs off of that record when it around time it came out. I don't remember how well it did on the charts or sales wise, but I did hear a couple of songs that I quite liked, and all the reviews or people talking about it was positive, but I just never got around to picking it up, and I'm glad I finally did because I think, well, I would say my favorite George solo albums would be All Things Must Pass, Wonderwall, and then Living in the Material World, and then the rest. I know uh, some of the others that I haven't had in years. I need to revisit the was it the 78 or 79 self-titled album, George Harrison, and the I just forgot the title, but the 87 album, and some of those are held in high regards. But this one I've played numerous times since I got it, and I got it 2 or 3 weeks ago. And I would rate it. I would say All Things Must Pass, Wonderwall, and then Material World would be my top three George albums. I think I'd rate this number four, or maybe even on par with Material World. It's just as good. And so this one doesn't seem to get a whole lot of attention or mention very often for whatever reasons. But if you've never heard it, I don't know if you want to go out and spend $40 or $50 for the LP copy. Just get a CD copy of it instead, maybe. But if you're a Beatle or George fan, this is as good as um, really anything that he ever put out, in my opinion. Um, there is Mar Marwa, Marwa Blues is a great one. Between the Devil and the Deep Blue Sea, Brainwashed. Any Road is a great song. This is among some of the best stuff that he ever did solo wise. Maybe obviously I think that All Things Must Pass tops it, but it's just there's not a bad song on this album. There are a few couple of two or three songs that are just okay, but there's nothing awful. There's nothing that's kind of sugary sweet or embarrassing, which unfortunately there are a few too many examples of songs like that on George's solo records, especially the mid 70s, late 70s albums. But this one, like, there's a couple of songs that are just okay, but even those are not awful by any means. And then there's some really fun, enjoyable, and just good music on here. So this one doesn't get a whole lot of mention. Check it out if you haven't. If you're a fan of George, doesn't sound like All Things Must Pass. Doesn't sound like Material World. Doesn't sound like Wonderwall. Of course, those three albums don't really sound like each other either. But maybe it's a little closer to um, I can't remember the name of the album. Not got my mind set on you, but you know what I'm talking about. That or the Traveling Wilburys records. But it's really even different than those. It's I would definitely recommend this by all means. So that is a great find, and I'm glad that I picked it up. Beautiful package, flimsy LP sleeve aside. The last thing I picked up was a new book on the Beatles. Um, it is called The Beatles All These Years, Volume 1, Tune In by Mark Lewison, and it is a Volume 1 of a planned three book series. This one is up to, I haven't finished it, I'm still reading it. Just got it a week or two ago, and I'm up to page 346. The book is, well, you can see it's a big book. It's 928 pages, I believe it is, or no, 932 pages, and it is really 803 pages of text. I don't know if you can read that, but it says end of part one, intermission, kind of like they did in Help, the movie, if you remember. And then the last 100 and so pages is footnotes and index. So this book, and it's just a general biography of the Beatles, goes up to 1962 to the recording, I guess like the eve of the recording of Love Me Do, their first 45, or their first Parlophone 45. So that's a lot of book to cover that. And the thing about this is, and I've said this before, back in the back when I first got into the Beatles, when I was a kid back in the 70s, Beatle books, or books on rock and roll bands in general, were few and far between. No internet, no email, no Entertainment Weekly to let you know when things were coming out. So it was kind of a wonderful surprise when you wander into the bookstore and see a new Beatles book. Uh, and I bought, by and by, I got the Hunter Davies book, The Beatles, which came out in '68. I mean, I got it in later, '74 or so. I got Growing Up with the Beatles by Nicholas Schaffner. I got Beatles Forever by Nicholas Schaffner, and Growing Up with the Beatles by Ron Schomburg. All just general biographies. All Together Now, which was just a list of their records, came out in '75 or so. And, I mean, there wasn't much information on the Beatles, like I said, back then. No internet, a few magazines here and there. So when you'd get a book, it was a really big deal. And I devoured those books, and I've read them. I still have them. I don't know, God knows how many times I've read them from 1975 or 6 or whenever I got them, between then and now. Um, but it got to a point, and I think the last one like that really made a big impression on me was a book called Shout by Philip Norman that came out in 1981. And because it just got to the point where, um, as you got into the 80s, and then definitely by the 90s and now, there's a Beatle book coming out every week, and you can go on Amazon and there's thousands of them, or you can go into a bookstore and there's a ton of them. Wasn't like that then, but um, toward the early 80s or so, it got to the point where there were so many Beatles books out there that after you'd read the Hunter Davies book and the Growing Up with the Beatles and the Beatles Forever and so forth and so on, you read the story and you knew the story because you'd read it so many times. And so uh, at some point I kind of started skipping just the general biography books because it wasn't much that I hadn't already read or knew about them. And I've always bought Beatles books between '81 and now, but I tend to go for the books that are just focus on some discrete aspect of the band. I bought a book I showed a couple of videos ago of just focuses on their Christmas records and their Christmas concert shows. Patty Boyd's biography, books about non-American or non-British releases, just things like that. Because uh, I got someone gave me a biography of the Beatles, hardback book. I think it's just called The Beatles. I don't remember the author, for Christmas 9, 10 years ago, and it was nice, and I read it and I put it on the shelf, and it's really nothing that I hadn't already read 100 times before. It's kind of just perfunctorily written, and I found that to be the case with most of the general biographies. So I just kind of stopped buying them. This one, though, being a three-part book and being 800 and something pages, just going up to 1962, kind of intrigued me. Uh, it says on the back, let's scrub what we know or think we know and start over. Who really were these people and how did it all happen? So, and maybe it's just because it's been a good long while since I've read a general biography on the Beatles, but I'm really getting into this and enjoying it. And like I said, I'm only 300 pages into it. There's a lot of information in here that I uh, either forgot or never knew, um, and it's very in depth. It's I think it's like 130 some pages into the book before John and Paul even meet. Not too far before that, before John and Paul and George meet. Uh, there's a lot of information about their parents and their grandparents and great grandparents. There's a lot of information of George Martin before he knew the Beatles, of his growing up and his life and music that he recorded for Parlophone in the 50s before he knew what Beatles were. He is credited with recording the first skiffle album in England. And skiffle, of course, was a music craze that came around about the same time as rock and roll. It was big in England. I don't think so much in America, but that's sort of, along with Elvis Presley, was what got the Beatles, John and Paul and George, into music to begin with. A lot of stuff about Brian Epstein and his family. A lot of cool information about, we all know Stuart Sutcliffe and Pete Best, and there's a lot of information on them, but some of the minor Beatles, people that just sort of came and played in the group for a month or so, Tommy Moore and some of the other drummers that kind of came and went. So it's kind of interesting to hear about those people that you maybe heard in passing in the past, but not much information on them. And so it's very good if you are like me and you've been a Beatles fan for forever and you've read tons of books to the point where you kind of gave up on them because you've read it all. I would recommend this. It's definitely worth getting. Might have some new information that you don't have not run across in the past. Um, I'm enjoying it wholeheartedly and recommend it. So yeah. And if you're new to the Beatles, this might be a good place to start. It's a little pricey. Everything is these days, though. So I mean, it's $40. This just came out, and I managed to get a used copy of this for like $25, even though it just came out a month or so ago. But I'm looking forward to finishing this, and I'm looking forward to parts 2 and 3, which I guess go through the end of the Beatles, or maybe they go into the solo years. I don't know what he plans to do with it, but I did think it was interesting. And Lewison has written several books of the Beatles uh, before this one, recording session dates and kind of day by day things and live concert lists of all their live concerts. So it says that he is the foremost authority on the Beatles, which I'm sure is arguable, but it says he's the world's only professional Beatles historian, and I'm not sure what qualifications you have to meet to get certified thusly, but there you go. But the book is good, and it's very in depth, and so um, check it out, definitely. Um, I had done a review a while back on this that I got that focuses on the Beatles solo works. There's 4 separate books for each Beatle. Great packaging, wonderful artwork, lousy content, nothing in there that you don't already know. So, but this one is the real deal, and one of the better books I've read on the Beatles in a long, long time. So check it out, and Merry Christmas, everybody, and have a good rest of your weekend.